Good evening, everybody. It's 7:02. We'll call the meeting to order. And if you'll just indulge me, I'm going to read this pursuant to the Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, Chapter 30A, subsection 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. Members of the public who wish to watch and listen to the meeting may do so in the following manner. On WCTV, we're on Channel 9 Comcast, Xfinity, and we're on Channel 37 for Verizon Fios viewers, and we're also available to stream live at WCTV.org. This meeting of the Wilmington Board of Selectmen is being conducted via remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Members of the public who would like to listen to the meeting while in progress may also do so via telephone by dialing 1-646-558-8656 and enter the ID 884-8123-9606. Then press pound and pound again at the next voice prompt. Members of the public attending this meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the meeting designated for public comment by the following steps previously noted, and then press *9 on their telephone keypad. This will notify the meeting host that the caller would like to speak. All callers using this feature will be placed in a queue in the order that they have entered the prompt. In the event that despite our best efforts, we are not able to provide real-time access, we will post a record of this meeting in the town's website as soon as we are able. And with that, we want to welcome you all to tonight's meeting. And we will call roll call. Mr. Kyra?
Here.
Mr. Eaton?
Here.
Mr. McCoy?
Here.
Mrs. O'Mahony?
Here.
Happy belated Mother's Day to you and all the moms out there.
Thank you.
Would you guys please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
the Republic,
the Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, great. We have transmitting of Treasury warrants 44, 44A, 45, and 45A. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second.
Motion's been made by Mr. Kyra, seconded by Mrs. O'Mahony. Roll call vote. Mr. Kyra?
Yes.
Mr. Eaton?
Yes.
Mr. McCoy?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Mahony?
Yes.
Mr. Bendel is also a yes. That's unanimous. We have approval of one set of minutes from April 27th of 2020. Is there a motion?
Selectmen makes that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Kyra seconds.
We have a motion from Mr. Eaton. It's seconded by Mr. Kyra. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for a roll call vote. Mr. Kyra?
Yes.
Mr. Eaton?
Yes.
Mr. McCoy?
Yes.
And Mrs. O'Mahony?
Yes.
Mr. Bendel is also a yes. That is unanimous. Okay, with that, just before we move to our first appointment, you'll notice that if you'd like to call in tonight, WCTV is kind enough to flash the phone number on the screen and the instructions. I know we have a few people on the line already, and we will take everybody's call under public comment, so we look forward to hearing from you. And again, if you want to dial in, the number is flashing at the bottom of the screen, so thank you to WCTV for providing that. Thanks again to our IT Director, John O'Neill, who is administering this meeting here via Zoom. And thank you to Beverly Dalton, who's keeping the minutes as always. We have a number of good guests here tonight, but first we're pleased, very, very pleased to welcome two fine gentlemen from town. Colin and Jack McLeod are here with their dad, Scott. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. Hi, guys. Thanks for being with us.
Hi. You're welcome.
This is great, man. We're really excited. So for those of you guys at home don't know, Jack and Colin are twin brothers. You guys are 9 years old, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And you're going to be 10 in a couple weeks?
Yes. Yeah.
That's awesome. And we've got about 25,000 people watching us live right now, okay? And they're all excited to know that you guys have been very, very busy. I know that you guys, in addition to your schoolwork, have been doing a ton of things to help out the community we wanted to have you come on here and thank you publicly on live television for the things that you've been doing. So we are so delighted to have our police chief is with us, and we're going to hear from him in a minute. The town manager's on the phone with us here, and all 5 members of the Board of Selectmen are here. And so the reason you guys are here, I'm going to let you talk about it, but I want to give away a little bit of the surprise. Jack and Colin recently opened up their piggy banks, counted up all their coins and the money they had in there. And when their dad said, "Hey, what do you think we should do with this?" they first thought of helping out others. So I don't want to steal the story. I want to let Colin and Jack and their dad maybe tell a little bit from there, but they went above and beyond what most kids at their age are doing right now. And we are seeing a lot of acts of kindness, but this one rises right to the top. When it came to my attention about a week and a half ago, I said, we got to get these guys at the meeting. We're so glad to have you. So Colin and Jack, maybe your dad can help you out too if you need to, but tell us, when you counted up that money, you decided to do what with it?
We decided to give it to the police department, and we thought it would be a good idea to donate 20 masks to all of them. And then after that, we the way when we were there, we picked up a ton of plastic, beer trash, beer cans, and all of that
To help out the environment.
to help out the environment.
Nice.
That is awesome, man. That is awesome. So not only did you guys give your own money up, but you just thought of going above and beyond and helping out the police department and donating those masks so that you can keep those guys safe. But on top of that, the icing on the cake, on your way down, you're picking up trash to help out everybody in town. I can't believe it. It's incredible. Chief Desmond, I know you're on the line.
Yes.
What was it like when you got the news that these guys wanted to do such a great thing for your department?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'll be honest with you. I don't think at 9 years old I would have spent the money this way. So it's really moving. The people of the town have been great, but this was just above and beyond. And I apologize for not having any of the masks with me. I took them to the first roll call, and when I came back, the bag was empty. They were great-looking masks, and they're all gone, and they're all being used by the members of the department.
That's awesome. And John, can we put that picture back up on the screen so everybody can see? Here's the picture of Colin and Jack and their dad and the chief and the deputy chief. And look at that. Look at all the coins, and they got a note right there. We'd like to donate these coins to make face masks for the Wilmington Police Department. I mean, that's incredible. At 9 years old, I was running away from the police station, not running to it, So I think your dad's got to be awfully proud, Dad. I know you're there in the background, and maybe you just want to tell us how proud are you? I mean, this is an awesome act by your boys.
Yes, I'm quite proud. I mean, I know they have a kind heart, and we always try to teach them that to always think of others before themselves. And so they, during the night they were counting their coins. We didn't know what they were doing, and then they wrote up the note. And beknownst to me and his mom, we looked at it and noticed that what they're doing, and it was just a kind thing. And I thought that was wonderful. I put a post out there on Facebook and Twitter, and some good friends of ours, David Joseph Fashion Design, said that they will help do that, do the mask in a quick time, which was really kind. So again, these boys are, when we usually are out in public, they're always willing to try to help out other people, and it's just really good to see that in today's age.
Absolutely, we're really lucky to have them as part of our Wilmington family. I want to open up to my colleagues who are here. They may have some questions or some comments. We'll go down the line. Mr. Kyra, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Hey, guys.
Hi,
Who's Jack and who's Colin? You raise your hand, Jack?
I'm Jack. He's
Okay.
Colin. I'm Colin.
All right. Hey, thank you guys very much. I'm sure the police department is very appreciative of what you've done for them and helping them out to stay safe when they go out on patrol and do their work. It's very important that they have the masks so that nothing happens to them. It's an unbelievable act of kindness by you and what you've done, and a great example for the community to take forward and move forward. And maybe you might be inspiring others to do the same, to take this on. So thank you so much for what you've done for Wilmington.
Absolutely. Mr. Eaton?
Thank you.
Oh yeah, guys, thank you again. I'm just very impressed by the leadership and initiative that you two young men have shown. I'm sure your parents are both very proud of you for doing that. So while other kids might be taking advantage of staying up a little bit later, you two are brainstorming ways to help out your community. So I think we all appreciate that. So keep up the great work, and I'm sure your parents are absolutely beaming with pride. So good job, guys.
Thank you.
Mr. McCoy?
Yeah, thank you, Colin, Jack, and Dad. I want to thank you very much for all the work that you've done. You know, in society, we hear all the bad that kids do, but we very seldom hear the wonderful things kids do. But I noticed during this pandemic, a lot of kids and people are pulling together, and you see a lot of nice things on Facebook. But getting back to what you kids did, I think it's outstanding. You just show really leadership. And if a lot more kids step up to the plate like you kids did, I'm sure you like to hit it out of the park, that Little League Park, and eventually that's going to happen. So guys and Dad, thank you so much for all the work you do in helping our community, especially men and women.
That means a lot.
Thank you.
Mrs. O'Mahony?
Sure. I just want to say to you guys are my favorite part of Wilmington. So you keep working hard. You keep listening to your parents, who I'm sure are teaching you how to be awesome like this, right? And when you help heroes like our emergency workers, you guys become heroes. So you should definitely walk with your heads high and be proud that you made such an awesome decision, and keep up the good work. We're very proud of you.
Thank you.
Guys, we have the town manager's on the line. Maybe he wants to say a few words too. Jeff, are you there?
Yes, yes, I am. I was really impressed when I heard about this effort that you made and the idea that you came up with. $91, that's a pretty good amount of money for kids your age. I'm not sure what kind of enterprises you're working in, but I'm sure $91 is a lot of money for you to come up with. So to be so generous as to take that $91 and put it towards a good cause really speaks very well about both of you, and certainly your folks as well. You really represent Wilmington well, and keep on doing the good work. Random acts of kindness.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So you guys are on live television. Is there anybody you want to give a shout out to? I mean, you got to give a shout out to your school. Which school are you guys at?
Shawshene Elementary.
Who's your teacher?
Awesome. So you have any friends or your teachers you want to say hello to, or family members you want to say hello to while you're on the TV?
Hi, Nanny, and hi, DB.
Awesome. Jack, you got somebody?
Hi, Dominic.
All right.
What about your teachers?
Listen, guys, I've got a big surprise for you here, okay, as we finish up. We're not the only ones that noticed this kind act that you guys did. I think a lot of people saw it on social media. They saw it on the agenda, and they saw it for tonight's meeting, and they seen it live on TV. I got a call today from good friends of ours, Dave and Candy Erickson, who own AJ's Kitchen. They were so impressed with you guys and what you did that they're going to be delivering pizza to your house tomorrow for your whole family as a way to say thank you from our community. How about that?
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. So you never know who's watching. I know that you guys did this out of the kindness of your heart, but I think you impressed a lot of people, including our good friends at AJ's Kitchen. So they want to pay it forward and have a special treat for you guys tomorrow night. Does that sound good?
Yep.
All right. That's my favorite.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks to AJ's Kitchen, my favorite takeout place in town. And we really appreciate Dave and Candy stepping up and doing that. But again, guys, I'm going to give you one last chance to say anything before you get going. Is there anything you want to say before we take off?
We just really wanted to give the mess to the police department because they do a lot of stuff for us, and help out everybody. And we just want to say thank you.
Chief, do you want to respond to that?
Absolutely. I just want to say one more thing, if I could. It's never too early to think of a career in public service. And if you two ever decide you want to join the force, I'm sure you'd make a great addition.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep, guys, we can't say it enough. Thank you so much on behalf of everybody in our town. We're so impressed. You guys have bright futures. Keep working hard. Do well in school. You guys are going to be running these meetings soon someday when I'm old and gray, okay? And we really appreciate it. We hope we see you around town, and enjoy that pizza tomorrow night. Thanks to AJ's.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks again. See ya.
All right, bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
All right. That was good stuff. And so, folks, we're going to try to, there's so many random acts of kindness that are going on right now. It's overwhelming. We're going to try to highlight some of them. I'm sure we won't be able to get to all of them. We just have to meet every day if we were going to get to all the random things of act of kindness that are going on. But when we heard about this, it was so, we're so glad we were able to bring those guys on. So thanks for letting us do that. This is a tough act to follow, but if anybody can do these next. So we want to welcome in our Health Director, Shelley Newhouse, and our Fire Chief, Billy Kavanaugh. Are you there?
Hi.
Hi, guys. I know you guys have been extremely busy, and Shelley, I will start with you. I know we've seen some good news with the numbers, but we got to be continue to be cautious. We can't. We're not through the thick of the woods yet.
We do. We have to have a consistent drop for 2 solid weeks before we can get real excited. Wilmington currently has 22 active positives. Which is a drop from over the weekend. It went up over the weekend and now it's back down again, which is a good thing. We expect to see that with more testing that happens. We'll see, numbers go up just a couple of points, down a couple of points. So it's that's okay. We have 9 in quarantine still. Care One has 30 active positives right now, and Windsor Place has 16 active positives right now. And both facilities are doing okay. They have adequate staffing. They are managing fine. I talk to them almost every day. They give me updates. And I wanted to say thanks to the Wilmington Food Pantry, the Mary Palin from the Wilmington School Food Service, and Terry, our Elderly Services Director, for helping out getting families supplies, food. I said it again at the last meeting, there's people in town that need things, that need food, that can't get out. We had some local residents here that have stepped up to the plate as well, anonymously, that have delivered meals to families in need. It's a strange time that we're in. You would never think that people would need food and need basic supplies just to get through the day, and they do. And Wilmington's been great by getting supplies to everyone. You will see, if anyone sees a phone call come through that says, mass COVID, you need to take that phone call. It's the contact tracing collaborative throughout the state that the state just initiated last week. So if you have a landline or you have a cell phone and you see some mass COVID number, it's not spam, it's not a scam. It's that you need to answer the phone because you've either been in contact with a positive patient or you're positive yourself. So they do an extensive background check of all your contacts that you've been in contact with, and it's important that you answer that phone. You'll probably see on TV some commercials that say, answer the phone when you see mass COVID. So you need to make sure you answer the telephone. It's important so we can keep track and get our numbers down. We had
Absolutely.
a great
Shelley,
initiative last week. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me still? Okay.
Yep.
So we had a
Yep.
great initiative last week with getting out masks to the community. It went so fast. We've given out 4,000 masks since March. And I'm getting more in, so we'll be getting more masks to people. We did it as a drive up, and I gave out like 500 literally in 45 minutes. So we give 5 to a carload. We have kids masks and adult masks. So keep on the lookout on social media, and we'll be doing that very soon, probably this week again, as soon as I get my supplies replenished.
Yeah, and Shelley, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys had been delivering masks to residents before.
Yeah.
So you guys gave out quite a few in advance to the event last Wednesday, right?
Yes.
Okay. And we appreciate that. Thank you so much. Chief Kavanaugh, are you there?
I'm here.
All right, sir. Do you mind giving us an update on your end?
Yeah, so like Shelley said, we have the two Windsor Place and Care One, who have current active patients there that we are still transporting to the hospital for a multitude of reasons, whether it be COVID or chest pain, anything like that. So we are still confronting that on an almost daily basis. Avinia Care has been turned into a partial COVID unit. So at last check, they had 5 COVID patients. Once those people clear the COVID protocols, they move into like a step down unit. So we're still treating the whole facility as though it's contaminated, because in our perspective it is. But that's not to say that, the patients who were originally there and are now non-COVID, they're upstairs. So they may not be in the same rooms as where they were originally before this all started, but they are upstairs. One of the big things that we're having not really difficulty with, we've done a good job proactively. Lieutenant Scott Sensabaugh from the police department, Deputy Chief Posey, myself, Lieutenant Woods have been very aggressive with our procurement of PPE. We've been able to help Shelley with some of the masks that she needs that she's been handing out. We've been able to get some other stuff through MEMA that we've been adding to our arsenal to keep our stuff current. A lot of the calls that we're going on, our people are still using quite a bit of PPE. They have to. There's a lot of false positives, a lot of false negatives. So we're treating kind of everything like it's COVID until it's presumed otherwise. I mean, this is not a one of the things I keep hearing get kicked around. It's really frustrating to me because I think people are maybe a little uneducated. This is not H1N1. This is not bird flu. This is not any of that stuff. That stuff didn't do what this current pandemic is doing to us. Those were very much set up as kind of advisories. Hey, if you run into this, just think about it. Here's what you should be wearing. These are every single call. The men and women of both the police and fire departments are wearing this stuff. It's bringing extra heat on the dispatchers to make sure they're getting the correct information from the caller and back out to us. So lots of stress for the frontline personnel that are responding to this stuff on a daily basis, but they're doing a great job trying to keep everybody safe and trying to keep themselves safe. I'm happy to report that, knock on wood, no matter what's been going on and how many people that we've actually encountered that are COVID, which there have been a large number, we have no firefighters and no police officers that have tested positive. And that is a true testament to them taking the proper precautions, to cleaning themselves up, to decontaminating their equipment, and making sure that they're, slowing things down where they can and doing their due diligence to make sure that nobody's getting unnecessarily exposed to things.
Great. Thank you, Chief. And Chief Desmond, you're still with us. So if I can, I'd like to call on you again and just see if there's anything you want to add there. I know we were, was just a couple weeks ago that we aired a PSA about domestic violence. And so there are certainly a lot of calls that still come into the PD. You guys are very busy as well.
Right. I just, one of the things we were trying to stress is the fact that we are open. I think people are so hunkered down, that they don't realize that the public service is still there for things other than, health issues. And, that's why we put those out there. And we just want to remind people again that we're here, pick up the phone and call us. It might be a different type of response. We may have to do some more things, a little differently over the phone or such, but still it's, we're here, and we want to stress that. And like the fire chief said, I think that, it's no accident that no one has gotten it just yet. I think we're being very careful. We've had about 4 people we had to, kind of hold our breath with that were tested, but so far all 4 came back negative, and certainly we'd like to keep that way.
Absolutely. We're very glad that it did. So we certainly thank all 3 of you. I want to open it up here for my colleagues who may have questions or comments. We'll start with Mr. Kyra.
I'm good with questions. Just once again, my appreciation for everything that the 3 of you and your departments are doing on behalf of the community. Yeoman's work, outstanding. The amount of time that you're putting in. Can't thank you enough for what you do. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mr. Eaton?
Yeah, kind of to echo a bit of Selectman Kyra's comments, I just wanted to thank all 3 of you in your respective departments. I think we're more than 2 months into this at this point, and it certainly would be understandable to get fatigued by it, but I certainly appreciate the diligence and attention to detail that this requires of everyone in all of your departments, and you're continuing to protect us, and it's certainly very much appreciated. So thank you all.
Thank you. McCoy?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to thank the men and women of the police and the fire department. And I also want to thank the Board of Health for doing due diligence, making sure we're staying safe, giving us updates as Shelley has been doing. That's a comfort to know what's happening, and just want to say thanks. Thank you.
Absolutely. And Mrs. O'Mahony?
Sure. I again want to thank you guys and ask the same question I've asked every time. Is there anything that we can be doing to help support your efforts right now? Let us know, please. And I did have one question for Shelley. You had said that you wanted numbers needed to be on a decline for 2 weeks for that to really kind of be the next step of this. Is that the standard kind of being used statewide, or is that just kind of the town of Wilmington standard?
No, that's the standard statewide. We need to see a drop in for a solid 2 weeks, or a nice plateau for a solid 2 weeks before we can enter into the phases that the governor had mentioned today.
Okay. Thank you for that. I just wanted to be clear that that's not just us.
Thank you. And Mr. Hall, obviously these 3 departments have been right on the front lines, and we really appreciate all their efforts. But also DPW and public buildings and a number of other departments have been contributing to the effort here. Did you want to speak to that just a little bit?
Yes, certainly Shelley and Chief Desmond and Chief Kavanaugh deserve a tremendous amount of credit. This is, I can only imagine the level of stress that they have taken on in light of the circumstances that we've run into here for the last couple of months. They've done yeoman's work, and their respective departments have, quite frankly, from my perspective, having worked with them for some period of time, I'm not surprised, but it's certainly gratifying to have people that you can really depend upon. And with respect to the other departments, as Chief Desmond noted, the town is continuing to operate, albeit in a different manner. Certainly Public Works has had personnel out, whether it's dealing with the unfortunate reality of burials at Wildwood Cemetery, being on the streets, doing road cleanups. Public Buildings has been in all the various buildings doing cleaning on a regular basis. As you earlier heard, Terry Marciello and her staff have been delivering meals. Tina Stewart and her folks, while not in the building have been doing virtual programs. And certainly here at Town Hall, all the departments have been engaged in the work that they typically do. So we're managing and we're here pretty much daily.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so it's great to hear that the services are still being provided to residents. I'm so grateful that each of your departments are putting out updates almost daily, whether it's on online or social media. You guys recently did another PSA video, I think, with Mrs. Marciello, and so we appreciate that. And I know that's airing on WCTV, and can't thank you enough for all the information that I know John's putting up on the town website. And there's a lot of data coming out. I really appreciate you guys keeping residents as informed as you can. Did we miss anything for this week's COVID update, folks? All right, well, we appreciate all the work you're doing. Keep up the good work and please stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, and with that, we'll move to our next appointment. Our third and final appointment is with Miss Valerie Gingrich, our Planning and Conservation Director, in regards to a local preference relative to the Princeton property development. Hello, Valerie.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
So I'm here tonight to talk to you all about local preference in marketing affordable units. Local preference is sort of a set aside where units, affordable housing units, are allocated to those who qualify as local. DHCD, the Department of Housing and Community Development, allows a local preference if the town can prove that it's needed. We do that by talking about how long our wait lists are for rental units in town and other data that we supply to DHCD. The maximum number of local preference units is 70% of the affordable housing units. And if DHCD approves the local preference, it can be employed by the owner of the property, the manager of the property, in the first leasing during the lottery process for affordable units. DHCD allows 4 categories of what they consider local, and it's sort of a menu of what's considered local. 1 being current residence, a household in which 1 or more members is living in the city or town at the time of application. And 2 would be municipal employees. 3 would be employees of local businesses. And 4 would be households with children attending the town's schools. So those are sort of the 4 main categories that are considered local preference that you can sort of choose from to build your local preference for each project. Princeton Properties has agreed to employ a local preference at their first lease up of affordable units. And the definition of what is going to be considered local preference will be worked out during the permitting process. So that was sort of a very quick overview of local preference. I'm happy to answer any questions if the board has any.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add by way of explaining why this is on the agenda. So the Zoning Board of Appeals, as part of the permitting process, will ultimately consider local preference. It was my suggestion, or is my suggestion, that the Board of Selectmen consider making a recommendation as to what the definition of local preference should be within these parameters. The board can certainly choose to take no action at all. I think in light of the circumstances and the fact that this project came through the Board of Selectmen, the board certainly can take the opportunity to make a recommendation to the Board of Appeals.
And the Board of Appeals will be taking this up this coming Wednesday, I believe?
The very beginning stages, that's right. I don't anticipate they will necessarily address the local preference at this meeting, but that is the kickoff meeting.
Okay. Well, thank you both for that. Mr. Kyra, do you want to start us off for comments, questions?
Sure. Valerie, thank you for this presentation. Just a quick question. You mentioned that you have to choose one, or do you take all four and prioritize them?
So those 4 categories are what you can choose from. You can choose all 4. You can choose within the menu. DHCD does have some guidance on, if you choose this one, you have to make sure that you do X, Y, and Z. But this is basically the full extent of what you consider local, and you can narrow it down.
Okay, but you can choose all 4 and say, number 1 is my first preference, and then it defaults to number 2, and then from there it will default to 3 and default to 4, something like that? Or do most people just choose number 1, current residents?
So they would have equal, so how it happens is, let's say you choose all 4. If you meet one of those criteria, your name goes into the local preference lottery for a unit. So there wouldn't be a ranking of those 4 categories. If you meet one of them, you just go into that kind of hat for your name to be pulled. So when you choose those categories, it's they're equally weighted,
Okay.
I guess.
I understand. Yeah, so it would make sense to choose all 4, wouldn't it? To give everybody that opportunity to go into the lottery?
Is
that what most communities do? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, we often see all 4 being chosen. When we did the Spruce Farm lottery, all 4 of those were allowed categories for that. I believe that's what we've done the past few times, at least since I've been with the town. So yes, you can choose all 4 and have more people in that pool.
Okay, great. Yeah, it makes sense. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, a comment?
Oh, Mr. McCoy.
Yeah, if we can, I understand there's 4 choices, but the way I'm looking at number 1. I'd rather just lock in 1 for current residents. It says current residents, a household in which 1 or more members is living in the city or town. I would strike out living in the city that's living in our town. There are a lot of folks in this community that their parents and children's grandparents are living with the folks living in this community. They would be my preference, and to try to get some type of housing. That's what I would like to see. And I understand we're looking at different variables, but these are the folks that, do have to, if a development comes in, there are folks living in the area, and I get that. So why don't we take care of our residents first who live in this community, pay the taxes, pay the bills. And there's a lot of folks, and I know repeat myself, a lot of folks in this community have been around this town a long time, 62 years. And a lot of folks living in this community, some are living with their parents. And we need to take care of those folks first before we take care of anybody else. That's how I see it. That's what I add. I would like to strike out living in a city, just keep it living in the town of Wilmington, put the word Wilmington in it. That's what I would like to see. And if there was a possibility that we didn't need everybody and everyone's fine, then you'd look at something else. But guaranteeing you, we're going to see a lot of folks want to fill out applications. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Valerie, did you want to respond to that?
Well, I do want to respond to, so that's the general wording that DHCD has in their guidelines. So it would be for those residents living in Wilmington specifically. City or town is just the language that's the general language.
Okay, we'll go back here to Mr. Eaton.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Ms. Gingrich. You answered Mr. Kyra's question about whether it's priority or whether we're just kind of setting eligibility. So if you hit one of the criteria that ends up being a part of it, that doesn't, you have an advantage over somebody who does not have one of the criteria, but not within that local criteria, I guess. I know, so that the households with children attending the locality's schools, I'm always wary when someone tries to define something with an example. It gives the example of Medco students. I believe we're not a part of that, but I think that this would probably most affect households that the parents are not living together. And I think I'm strongly in favor of including that one, because if it means that parents are divorced or separated, and it would perhaps give a leg up to a mother or father that was not living in town to live in the town that their child was going to school in. I think that that's something that we should certainly encourage, because I think that there's some logistical advantages to the children that are attending our schools to have both parents nearby. I certainly agree that the current residents, both of those are my top two in no particular order. I don't have any large or significant objections to the other two as well. So I am glad that this is a part of our agenda so that we can discuss that this proposal does include the local preference option, because I can't remember the last time we've had an annual town meeting where someone has not stood up and said that we need more affordable housing in town for the residents that have been paying property taxes for so long. So I'm glad that this is stayed a part of this proposal to date, and I hope that it continues to do so. But then I don't have any other questions. I think that summarizes my comments.
Thank you. Mrs. O'Mahony?
Sure. I think you could make a case for all four of the categories that DHCD lays out for us. Obviously, current residents, I think we're all thinking of especially the elderly population, as Mr. McCoy had pointed out, that, they want to stay in town, and it's more and more difficult for them to stay in town unless they're living with an adult child. And, I would also argue, municipal employees, you can make a case if we have, firefighters and police officers and teachers and other municipal employees who work in the town but can't afford to live here. I would support their ability to live in the town that they're working for as well. So I think you can make an argument for all of these, and I'm happy to. I was more impressed with reading kind of the lottery scenario. And I think that's important for people to understand, is that this local preference just kind of gets people into the pool. And then there's a lottery that allows them to be picked. So there's no kind of preferential treatment given, for one applicant over another. It seems like they try to make it as fair a process as possible, which I appreciate. And I think that's important for people to know.
Absolutely. Mr. Hall, I want to just come back to you here. Thank you to both of you for this memo and for answering some of the questions. I know that you will continue to keep us informed of what as this process goes through the regulatory process, the planning board, the Board of Appeals, and you'll keep us informed, and we can maybe talk about when the next time we might hear about this might be.
Yes. So the two boards that will be reviewing this proposal will be the Conservation Commission and the Board of Appeals. At this point, they'll be the intent anyways is that the process run concurrently, and that both committees will be evaluating different aspects of the proposal.
Great. And so I know you'll keep us informed as that process moves along. Are there any other comments or questions for Valerie? Jeff?
Mr. Chair, just one more for me. So Valerie, it's up to the Board of Appeals to make the ultimate decision on those four criteria. Is that correct?
Yeah,
I mean, we would recommend something to them.
Sure. Yes. Recommend to the Board of Appeals, and then they would write it into the decision for the comprehensive permit.
And typically the Board of Appeals, as you've said, with Spruce Farms, they've gone with all four for the criteria.
Spruce Farm was a little bit different. It went through the planning board because it was through our local zoning instead of a comprehensive permit. But all four of those categories were employed with those units.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for Valerie? Okay, Valerie, thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
coming. Okay. Before we move on to communications, I know we have 13 communications tonight. I want to remind folks that if you'd like to call in, make a public comment, the number is flashing at the bottom of your television screen. It's also right here front and center on the Zoom meeting. John's been nice enough to put that white box there with the number to call in green, with the ID in blue, and press 9 in red. So certainly we look forward to your comments under public comments. And as we move into communication, I just want to remind my colleagues, we have 13 of them. So please feel free to jump in here at any moment if you have a question or you want to make a comment as Mr. Hull goes forward with communications. Mr. Hull?
Yes, the first item under communications is legislation related to the town meeting quorum. As you know, a number of pieces of legislation have been approved by the House and the Senate, signed by the governor, related to the COVID situation. This one is in the process and would allow for a reduction in the quorum for town meeting. It would be based upon the Board of Selectmen in consultation with moderator, could reduce the quorum to a number not less than 10% of the existing number. So in our case, if the quorum, as you know, is 150, conceivably it could be reduced to as little as 15, which is a bit scary. But certainly that option would exist if this was to go forward. It would require a notice to be posted of the intention to consider an adjustment at least 7 days prior to the notice. The town clerk would have to notify the Attorney General's office not less than 10 days after the vote. And then the other caveat to this is that the town meeting would only be able to take up budget matters or issues involving commitments to the federal government or federal deadlines. So it wouldn't be able to consider, for example, zoning articles. So I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention. I'm not certainly suggesting that this be adopted if in fact it becomes available, but wanted to provide it as an FYI. Next is...
just through you, Mr. Chair, just a quick question. Do you happen to know the capacity, even if it's estimated, of the high school auditorium?
I believe the capacity right now is something in the order of 700. And certainly one of the things that we've been talking about internally is the measures that will need to be taken to try to keep social distancing. And what we envision at this point is a likely scenario where only certain, every fourth seat or fifth seat, whatever it might be, will be permissible for people to sit in, and we'll have to designate, the seating accordingly to try to keep the distancing.
Okay. My own thoughts on this is, I know that this board has gone through a lot of effort to try and maximize participation in town meeting over the last year and a half. I mean, we've resurrected the bylaw review committee in order to find ways to encourage residents to show up to town meeting as well. And this is, I think, something else to add to the long list of inconveniences, certainly, that the current situation presents. I know that a little over a month ago, our state delegation and governor had passed Chapter 53 of the Acts of 2020, which amended Chapter 44, Section 31, that allowed, if we could not hold an annual town meeting prior to June 30th, that the selectmen could approve 1/12 of the total budget from last year. So my own thought is, if we have to go past June 27th or June 30th to have an annual town meeting, I think is kind of a short bridge to get there. I think the existing legislation would allow us to do that in a way that hopefully would buy us some time so that we wouldn't have to reduce the quorum to as low as 15 to be making a decision on a $120 million budget. Because we're 5 right here. If we get 10 more people, that to me doesn't really seem like the type of direct democracy that our town bylaws is set up to try and preserve. So I do agree with your recommendation that this is not something that we should be entertaining unless we absolutely need to at some point down the line.
Absolutely, Mr. Reed, and I tend to agree with you, and I'm sure others do as well. I should add also, Mr. Hull, that we've been having a number of conference calls with our town moderator, our town council, and the chairman of the finance committee, and yourself and I. And I think the most recent one was last Wednesday, or the days are running together, but it was some point after our last Board of Selectmen meeting that we met, and we're considering all these things when it comes to rescheduling town meeting. And I can assure you that town council and our town moderator, Rob Peterson, are really on top of all the different options that communities are considering when it comes to town meetings. So I really appreciate their efforts, and so those conversations continue to go on, and we're exploring every viable option for Wilmington as well.
So next under communications is a memo from me to the board with regard to the status of the agreement for water to Cook Avenue. I know this has come up several times. The draft agreement has been sent off to James Cashwell, who's the representative from Olin. It was sent to him on April 30th. The expectation at this point is that Olin's legal counsel will review it. I'm sure they'll be having consultations with Dan Deutsch, who is the town's special counsel. Ultimately, once the agreement is reached, I would expect that as part of this process, EPA will offer comment. They don't need to actually authorize the agreement, but I would expect that they will offer comment. Once the agreement is signed off on by the respective parties, the agreement itself establishes an expectation that the work be completed in 1 year. There's various phases of it that need to be done. All of these phases are at the cost of Olin, which would include the engineering and design work that would need to be done, procuring the services, and at each of these phases, the town's engineering department would be monitoring and evaluating the work to make sure it's up to our standards.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just make a quick comment, if I could, please.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm just waiting, and just in case there's a delay or anything. Now, I want to thank the town manager for putting this on the front burner. I know I've been the most vocal on this, banging away at it, just trying to make sure that we can get this thing through. And I know I'm going to be there for a short period of time. But, you know, those residents, you know, we owe them. And if anybody owes them, it's the Olin Chemical that owes them to do this. I mean, as you know, there was a fire not too long ago, and they had to run fire hose across Main Street. And from what I understand from a couple of residents, they had to shut down Main Street for a couple of 3 hours to take care of that fire. And that's disastrous. So I want to thank you, Mr. Manager. I know I've been banging away at this, and I'm sure the other colleagues as well were very interested in this as well. I know they were. And I just think this is something that we owe to those poor folks in that area because of what Olin has done. And I'm glad to see at that public hearing when the EPA was there, that the gentleman that represents Olin said months and months ago that they said they would take care of it. So I just, that old saying, when just can't wait to see that check in the mail. That's it. I'm glad. Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Thank you.
Next under correspondence is a memo just with regard to the yard waste status, yard waste center. You'll recall the original intent was to close the yard waste center, or at least return to the regular schedule of yard waste openings. As of May 9th, there was a request made by members of the board, and the yard waste center will remain open on Wednesdays and Saturdays through the balance of May. As you know, the process is that there's a $15 punch card that can be obtained here at the town hall. At the treasurer's office, people can call in and make the request, and that card will be made available to them. So the hours will continue Wednesday and Saturday through the end of May. And then after that, it will be Wednesday and Saturday once a month through June, July, and August. Next under correspondence is the latest status report with regard to the New England Transrail and Wilmington Woburn Intermodal. This has really been on ice, so to speak, for quite some time, but the requirement from the Federal Surface Transportation Board is that the town and New England Transrail report in on a quarterly basis as to any developments that have taken place. As of this most recent quarter, there have been no developments. There's really been no communication at all between the parties. And the expectation at this point is that until EPA issues their remediation plan, I would not expect to see any further developments on this proposal. Next under correspondence is a memo from me to the board with regard to the summer beach program. Another casualty, quite frankly, of the COVID situation is the summer beach program. As you know, the rec department has for many, many years had the summer beach program. It starts in early June, runs through beginning of August. We have lifeguards on the beach and allow for swimming within the designated area. There's a number of concerns that have led to my decision to not permit the beach to open this year for that purpose. One being obviously the challenges that COVID presents in terms of the distancing. The expectation is obviously that when lifeguards are there, their primary focus needs to be monitoring what's going on in the water. The expectation is that if we were to open the beach, we'd have to hire additional personnel to be attentive to the distancing issue. It raises a whole host of issues, quite frankly, in terms of how people are separated and who's family and who isn't. The other issue, quite frankly, is just the challenge in getting lifeguards. I believe we have 10 that have expressed interest at this point in serving as lifeguards. I know Karen Campbell has had posted notice since January. I think we've had one inquiry. Unfortunately, they're not certified at this point, and certifications are not being offered at this time in light of the COVID situation. So the other issue that we would run into is just the lack of staffing. So as a consequence of all those issues, it's been my decision to not open the beach. The other element to that, of course, is the prospect of just swim at your own risk. I've talked to the two chiefs, to Karen, to Shelley, about this. And again, it's my belief that to err on the side of caution, it's best that we not permit the use of the beach. And I understand that clearly that's going to be inconvenient for many, many people. It's a resource that everybody treasures. I just think that, to permit that in spite of signage that we could put up, it presents certainly a good deal of risk. And the other issue that is going to be challenging, should it be open for that kind of a situation, is the police being responsible for breaking up crowds if there are people congregating there that are not exercising the social distancing.
And Jeff, just to start this off, I knew when we set the agenda, I said, I think this stood out the most to me as the most troubling. And so my first question, and I want to welcome in, I know Karen Campbell's here. Hi, Karen.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. How are we going to let folks know? I mean, there certainly, as the weather starts to get better here, we're going to see people trying to flock there. What's our plan of action in terms of letting residents know about this decision you've made?
Well, it's certainly going to be sent out via all the regular means of communication, whether it's the social media. We'll have it in the town crier. It'll be posted in all the usual places to make people aware. I would anticipate also when the next Town Topics comes up, which will be in June, that we will also place it in Town Topics.
How about signage? I would assume there'll be some signage at the beach.
Yes.
Karen,
Mr. Chair, Jeff or Karen, is there the ability to put a lock on the gates over there so people won't go through?
The beach is currently locked and there are signs up. Usually off season, we just have the beach unlocked, but since COVID-19 happened, the beach has been completely locked up and people have not been able to access the beach.
Karen, is there anything we missed that you want to add to that in this decision?
I'd like you to know that I am on a task force that's made up of all different rec departments from across the state that have aquatic facilities. We meet once a week trying to figure this out, navigating it together with very confusing, conflicting pieces of information coming down in every area. And many municipalities are taking this stance, and Bedford, some of you may be familiar with their splash pad and whole spring park there that they operate. They're closing down for this summer. We're not alone. The logistics are just really, really tough, and it's a really tough decision. But I think what Jeff is doing is exactly the right way to go.
Chief Desmond, from a public safety standpoint, did you want to add anything?
Right. I don't mean to compare us to Florida or California, but clearly the last few weeks, unsupervised beach openings haven't gone very well. They've ended up being closed the next day. So I anticipate that if we don't supervise it, it'll get crowded. It's only, I mean, even without COVID, I think that would happen. So I think it's a tough decision. Certainly the summer's coming, but I think it's a good decision to make.
Jeff, how would that work for people fishing and off the pier and things of that nature? Will there be signs over there, distance yourself? I heard that there were a lot of people out fishing the other day. Not that you can stop everybody, but I mean, right. Is that something that we need to be? We're worried about the beach end. Are we worried about that? The other.
To this point, and Chief, you can, certainly add. If my understanding is that for the most part, we've not had an issue with overcrowding at the fishing pier. I certainly believe that we will need to add signage there to remind people of the distancing, but presuming that can continue and people exercise that measure of responsibility, I think we can continue to allow the fishing.
I agree. The few calls we have gone down there have been people are using it, but they are at least 6 feet apart in most cases.
Okay. Thank you.
Next is positive note here. So this is a memo just informing the board about an effort that has been presented to us a couple of weeks ago by a couple of residents, Nicole Walker and Jennifer Erickson. They had sent an email to me noting that they were looking to sell Wilmington Wildcat flags in an effort to honor the students, in particular the graduating class. And we're hoping that they could encourage residents to fly the flag in honor of the graduating class of 2020. I talked to George Hooper and Mike Woods, and we decided to purchase 60 of these flags, and they will be flown along Church Street and Middlesex Ave immediately following the flags that will be flown in, for Memorial Day, just in recognition of the graduating class of 2020.
And so, Jeff, with the flags that the town's going to purchase, the plan moving forward on those is that we'll be able to reuse them because they don't say 2020. So this could kind of become a new tradition. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, I was curious, in fact, as to whether what they would look like. George provided me with a copy of the flag. It is the Wilmington Wildcat logo, as well as reference to the Wilmington Wildcats. So because it's not age specific, this is something that can be established as a new tradition.
And I think for those of you who ordered them, I know I ordered mine, and Nicole indicated yesterday that they're coming in starting today. So if anybody ordered one, they'll be in, and we encourage people to reach out to Nicole and others. That we thank them for putting this together and reaching out to the town. And I think it's going to be a nice idea when you're driving down Church Street to see all those flags. I think it's going to be quite a sight going forward. That could be a really be a nice nod to the class of 2020 and future classes.
Next under communications is the notice from Lou Samaglia, who is the Director of Veteran Services, and I'll just read this into the record. Board of Selectmen, due to the current social distance requirements, the Wilmington Department of Veteran Services has respectfully decided to cancel the Memorial Day parade originally scheduled for Monday, May 25th, 2020. The traditional ceremony will be held at the Veterans Lot and Soldiers Monument on at Wildwood Cemetery at 11 a.m. on Monday, May 25th. While the public is welcome to attend, any social distancing measures that are in place will be followed. The public is also welcome to assist with decorating veterans' graves at Wildwood Cemetery at 8 a.m. on Saturday, May 23rd, and decorating monuments and squares beginning at 10:15 a.m. on Saturday, May 24th, and on Saturday at May 24th at 1 p.m. the police station monument will be rededicated, followed by a short ceremony on the town common at 1:15 p.m. to honor all of Wilmington's fallen heroes and learn the stories behind our monuments. A complete schedule of weekends events is attached. Next under correspondence or communications is a press release from the town clerk. Again, just read this into the record. As you know, the emergency conditions brought on by COVID-19 pandemic are impacting every aspect of government functions, including administration of elections. Numerous elections and public health experts unanimously recommend that for at least the spring elections and perhaps even the fall elections, communities recruit election workers from the population of their residents that are the least vulnerable to the virus and its complications. The Wilmington Office of Town Clerk is seeking election staff for the upcoming annual election to be held on Saturday, June 20, 2020. The election hours are from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., but including setup and closing potential work hours are from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. Workers would not be asked to work all day, as recommendations are for shorter shifts. Candidates should not be within the list of COVID-19 vulnerable categories. Thus, they should be under the age of 65 with no underlying medical conditions. Election workers must be registered voters. However, state law does not allow or does allow for a certain number of 16 and 17-year-old workers for each precinct. These are paid positions. Anyone interested in working should contact the town clerk, Christine Tomei Conway, by email at ctomei/Conway@wilmingtonma.gov, or call the office of the town clerk at 978-658-2030. Messages left will be answered promptly. Next, we have a press release from the 4th of July Committee. In light of the ongoing pandemic, the Wilmington 4th of July Committee has voted to cancel the 2020 Fun in the 4th celebration. We needed to make a decision at this time due to the final planning requirements, including pending contracts with vendors involved in presenting the celebration. The committee will be meeting during the summer to discuss the possibility of organizing a one-day event in the fall, including fireworks if conditions allow. We will provide updated information once it is available, but we are certainly disappointed. We look forward to the return of the traditional celebration in 2021. Thank you and wish everyone well. Wilmington 4th of July Committee.
And Mr. Hall, if I could just interject there, thanks to that committee. We know this is a very difficult decision for them. I do support the decision. I know one they didn't take lightly. They certainly gave it a lot of thought. And this would have been the 40th celebration. So we want to thank, and I know some members will be leaving the committee. So we want to thank those volunteers on behalf of this board for their service to the community. And we look forward to it next year.
Next is correspondence from Jamie McGaldy, the operations manager at the Public Works. And this is with regard to the town's intention to selectively spray herbicides at the various right-of-ways throughout town. This is part of the town's 5-year vegetation management plan for 2020 to 2024. The plan can be found as noted here on the visual. That's the access to take a look at the plan itself. Maintenance work will be conducted along corridors in Wilmington in May and June. And this is slated to go forward. Next under correspondence is a communication from Anne Marie Welsh, Community Relations and Economic Development Specialist, Eversource. This is with regard to some work that they're going to be doing along their right-of-way corridor, which extends through Burlington, Wilmington, and into Woburn. In particular, the area that would be impacted in Wilmington would be portions of Chestnut Street, Main Street, Old Main Street, and Border Ave. And the information that's posted on the screen here notes that they will be performing work in this corridor, and that if anybody has any questions, they can contact Eversource through this information. I would note that they're also, or have sent information about their plans to abutting property owners along the corridor. Next is a letter from that was sent to Catherine Racer. She is the Associate Director for the Department of Housing and Community Development. This was a letter of support for the Princeton Properties project that is underway. It talks about the number of units, 108 units, 2 bedrooms, 20% of the units to be affordable at 50% of area median income. References the memorandum of agreement that we have in place with Princeton, and this was sent off on May 4th. And then finally, under communications, we have correspondence back from Ms. Racer to the chairman of the board, noting that the eligibility, the project eligibility has been established by a DHCD, which, as you recall, was the next step in the process in order for this project to go forward. This, with the authorization from DHCD, this now allows Princeton Properties to begin the meetings with the Board of Appeals and the Conservation Commission.
Okay. Before we move on to board to consider, we have 7 items board to consider tonight. I just want to remind folks that if you'd like to call in for our next agenda topic, which is public comment, the phone number is flashing at the bottom of the screen with the instructions, and we will take up your call in the order that they've been received. So we appreciate those of you who've been patiently waiting on the line, and we look forward to hearing from you shortly. With that, we'll take up board to consider. Mr. Hull.
Yes, the first board to consider is the signing of the warrant for the annual town election. You'll recall at your last meeting, the town clerk made a recommendation for establishing the elections on June 20th. The document that we have before us here this evening is the warrant for the election that will be sent around, if with the authorization of the Board of Selectmen, would be sent around to have board members sign off. And this would allow us to officially post the election, get the word out to residents, and begin that process.
Okay, is there a motion?
Selectman Eaton will make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Okay, the motion's been made by Mr. Eaton, seconded by Mrs. O'Mahony. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for a roll call vote, please. Starting with Mr. Kyra,
Yes.
Mr. Eaton,
Yes.
Mr. McCoy,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Mahony,
Yes.
and Mr. Bendel is also a yes. The vote is unanimous.
Next under board to consider is a request to light the town common red, white, and blue. This was actually came out of a department head a Zoom session that we had, I guess, a week or so ago. And it was, in fact, I think, not surprisingly, it was Lou Samaglia that raised the prospect of lighting the common red, white, and blue in May. And so with the board's authorization, we're prepared to do that.
Okay, and we appreciate Lou volunteering to pay for that. Is anybody going to make a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion? I can only say that because I know he's watching at home.
Yeah.
All right, seeing no further discussion, we'll call for the vote. Mr. Kyra,
Yes.
Mr. Eaton,
Yes.
Mr. McCoy,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Mahony,
Yes.
and Mr. Bendel is also a yes. And thank you to Lou and others. That's a great suggestion. I think that'll be nice.
Next under board to consider is establishing a policy for electronic signatures. You'll recall correspondence that was sent to the board about the process of using electronic signatures. I know that internally with some departments that require this, require signatures from their boards and committees, that we are looking to implement this. And John O'Neill was able to make arrangements to purchase the DocuSign, I believe is the particular program that would allow for electronic signatures. There are certain documents clearly that cannot be signed electronically. Many of those relate to real estate transactions, but for I think 99% of the signatures that the Board of Selectmen would be required to take, this DocuSign could be used. And I think particularly it was raised in the context of the weekly warrants. So the payroll and vendor warrants, as you know, come out weekly, and currently they are either at the station, or if additional signatures are required, the police will go to the various members' homes to get signatures. So this is, I think, was intended as a means to be a bit more efficient, perhaps, and in light of the current circumstances, avoid unnecessary contact.
And I want to thank Mr. Eaton. This was his idea to bring this forward, and it was very appropriately suggested to me that we have the board vote on it. So that's how we arrive here this evening. Mr. Eaton, did you want to add anything, as I know this was a topic that you had asked for?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So DocuSign is, I think, probably the most common electronic signature software. It is very user-friendly. What happens, and I've been using it for several years in my day job. What would happen is members of the board, or if it's town department heads that are sending off permits and whatnot to get signatures, would receive an email. That email would contain a link that was specific to the recipient. So if a document needed to be signed by multiple people, and so, for example, for the weekly warrant, each of us would be getting an email at our town email. I would be opening mine and I would be signing as myself, and not, I couldn't be signing as anybody else. It is very user-friendly. The other electronic signatures program that I've used is Adobe, and while that's relatively easy as well, DocuSign is really very intuitive, both in setting up a document to be routed for signature and in signing it. It also encourages, given our current circumstances, a practice that is consistent with social distancing. So rather than having 5 more people or 6, when you include the Ms. Dalton, who's driving the warrant to the police department each week, you're having that number fewer individuals going into the police department and exposing the police department to any sort of exposure if, God forbid, any of us were to be positive and asymptomatic. You're doing it actually through email by DocuSign encourages, given the current circumstances. I'll speak for myself. When I go to the police station to do it, I'm certainly concerned and thinking very much about social distancing and you know, being aware of what I touch, not to touch my face, wear a mask and things like that. To do it by email, I think actually encourages you to take your time and be a little bit more diligent. I think, if memory serves me correctly, I think it was Selectman Kyra who a few years back was examining the warrant and had discovered what the settlement payment to a former superintendent was. And certainly doing it at your own time in front of your own computer, I think allows you the luxury of being able to go through it in line by line detail. It is very fast. It's certainly setting up to route a document would take less time than it would take someone to drive from the town hall to the police station. I will note that the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission have already adopted electronic signatures and a policy. It provides an audit trail as well. So for the town manager's office to route a document, they can see the IP addresses of all computers that have access to the document. So you do have a sense of security. It's also encrypted by 256-bit encryption, which is on the high end of what the federal government requires for encryption. It is compliant with both federal and state law. And again, it is really very user-friendly. It's certainly a change to a routine. This is more of a house cleaning measure, but I am confident that once you do it a few times, you'll very much get used to it, and you'll, I think, appreciate not having to go to the police station to review the warrant on a weekly basis. This is also something that actually I will just very quickly add. It's something that could be generalized to other purposes as well. So other departments could be using this for other documents that need to be signed. I certainly think that we should be encouraging processes that would allow government to operate faster and more efficiently, rather than requiring a wet signature on certain things that could be routed electronically.
Thank you, Mr. Eden. I know there's probably more discussion on this, so are you willing to put that forward as a motion?
I will.
Okay, and is there a second to his motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Hull, there are other boards, I'm just learning now through Mr. Eaton that there are other boards that have already adopted a policy of electronic signatures?
The planning board within the last week or week and a half, yes, they have adopted this, yep.
Just within the last week. So they've done that by way of the state of emergency for issues of safety sake. In the past, it's not been done since. It's not been done.
That's,
you know, other than
it
because
was not
of
done. Right, it was not done pre-COVID, so it was within the last couple of weeks. Yes.
Okay. Because I noticed that the policy, you know, I like the idea of the electronic signatures. Don't get me wrong, but the policy is very general when it says that all town employees and boards and committees. It was my understanding that this was going to be for the Board of Selectmen for the sole purpose of signing the warrant, the payroll warrant and the vendor warrant. Now it seems to have been expanded to everyone. I would almost feel that this should be a policy that's enacted during a state of emergency rather than in general. Those are my comments. I'll make an amendment and I'll let someone else speak if they want to.
So, Mr. Kira, just so I'm clear on that, so do you want to move forward with this tonight under the assumption that it'll be the process during the remainder of the state of emergency, and then perhaps it's taken up again after that?
Well, I think the policy, well, I'll make an amendment to say that this policy should only be enacted during a state of emergency, and that should go for all town employees, boards, and committee members. Not that this is a, just an open-ended type of document. I think it needs to be the fact that it's a state of emergency.
Okay, is there further discussion before we?
I'd like to think, if I could, Mr. Chairman.
Sure,
I think Jonathan, to bring this forward was a tremendous idea. But I do agree with Selectman Kyra. I believe this should only be brought up during a state of emergency. I've been on the board a long time. I have no issue hand signing my signature. I'm from old school. I'd rather see it than sign it. But I do agree during these circumstances. But once the governor, absolves everything, I think it should go back to the way it was. Thank you.
Okay. Any other further discussion before we?
No, I would just say that last week when I was preparing to go in to sign the article at the police station, I'm putting on gloves and a mask like I'm going to rob the place, so it's not comfortable for them. I definitely feel like I'm not giving it the same consideration that we can normally give it when you can kind of be in the lobby or be in, their area and flip through and actually look at it right now. So I appreciate what Selectman Eaton is saying, that it gives us the opportunity to actually review it a little bit more carefully than the time we kind of can spend in the lobby of the police station currently. But I also get what Selectman Kyra and Selectman McCoy are saying, that I don't want it to be an open-ended kind of approval of it. I think, maybe we have a discussion and we think it works. I've never really been a fan of having to have the police, bring it around if not everyone's gone to sign it. I think there's a better use of their time than shuttling paperwork to us. So I'm not saying I wouldn't support it, maybe going beyond the state of emergency. I think it's probably a discussion we should have when we're not in a state of emergency. But I think for the current circumstances that we're in, it makes sense to be doing it electronically. I also have used DocuSign in a professional basis. It's secure. I agree with Mr. Eaton. It's not something that I can sign as anyone else except myself. So I think it's probably the best route that we could be taking right now.
I want to give our IT director, John O'Neill, an opportunity to chime in. John?
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say, this policy doesn't force you to use electronic signatures. It's really just creates the responsibility that if you are using an electronic signature, we all know your full intent and you have agreed to this. Whether after the state of emergency you move back to wet signatures, I don't think this pertains to anything about this policy.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing is that some of the consensus from my colleagues is that I don't think there's any objection to having the Board of Selectmen do it now under the current state of emergency. And perhaps this will be a good trial run for us, and that maybe it needs to be revisited once the state of emergency is over, and we hope that sooner than later. Because I think there's obviously arguments for both sides. I too have used DocuSign and I feel comfortable with it. I know I find it to be very secure. And so I'm comfortable either way, but I recognize that we have a couple concerns from members and I want to be respectful. But before we alter the made motion, I want to go back to Mr. Eaton. are you comfortable with altering your motion?
My personal preference would be to use it indefinitely, but it's because I've been using it for so long. And once you get used to it, you really figure out like how simple it is. And but I mean, if this is how it gets the foot in the door, I think I'm certainly not trying to rewrite all our policies and procedures. This is something that I'm pretty confident folks are going to like. So if the consensus of the board is let's just try it for now as kind of a trial run, and if it works, then we'll consider continuing it. If it doesn't, then we can figure out what to do afterwards, and I'm comfortable with that.
Okay, Mr. Hull, I want to ask you, could you maybe, I'm just going to put you on the spot here, think of an example of another use that you could think outside of the Board of Selectmen, maybe that would make people feel more comfortable, or just kind of put things in perspective for us? Like, what other uses in Town Hall? I would imagine that there's a lot of documents that bounce around that building. And
well, certainly, yeah. I mean, I can imagine just myself, if there's a contract that needs to be signed and it's being sent via, copy via email rather than regular mail, I would use DocuSign. Contracts with vendors, for example. That's one particular circumstance that jumps to mind.
Okay, and so the board of planning board is the one that's adopted it already too, right?
Right. So the decisions that are made require the sign off. I believe in that case it's the chair. So it just expedites it if they can get the document, via electronic mail and sign off on it. That just it's a bit easier.
Okay. So,
Mr. Chair,
yep, Mr. Carroll?
just a question, Mr. Hull. Who has the authority over the planning board to allow them to take this action, or any other boards? I mean, how do they take this? Isn't it the Board of Selectmen that allow it, or you, or?
Yeah, I think it's the town manager, can allow different boards and committees to adopt these provisions.
Can we find this out from our town council, if it's the selectmen that permit it, or the town manager, please?
Okay.
So
I think the town manager has authority because of the Strong Town Manager Act. He can enter into negotiations, can sign contracts. He's in charge of the hiring and the firing. So I assume it does fall within his venue. But I think Selectmen, have town council look at it. But I think you're going to see that Jeff has that authority.
So here's what I'd like to do. We do have a motion. I think Mr. Eaton is comfortable keeping it. So we're going to go ahead and vote on this motion. And then if it, depending on how it ends up, we could take up another motion. People are welcome to vote however they feel comfortable. But I think, Mr. Eaton, correct me if I'm wrong, but you want to stick with your made motion.
I'm sorry, I missed the last minute or so. Apparently, I should pay my internet bill next month. So, no, I said I recognize this is a change that would affect certainly all 5 of us. So I'm comfortable amending it for the time being, with the understanding that once we have some experience using it, we can revisit it and see where we go from there. If it's a practice that we want to continue or go back to. So I'm comfortable amending it if that's the consensus of the board, because again, this is something that does affect our regular weekly routine.
Okay, so Mr. Kyra, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're going to adopt this until the state of emergency is over, and then perhaps we'll revisit it at that point. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is everybody clear on what we'll be voting on?
Yes.
Okay. We'll go down the line. Is there any other discussion before we call for the vote? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Kyra?
Yes.
Mr. Eaton?
Yes.
Mr. McCoy?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Mahony?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes, so the vote is unanimous. So, Mr. Hull, we'll throw the ball back to you on that one, and I think a couple questions that have been asked of you, so I'm sure you'll get back to those answers.
Yes, so we will implement the process for the, as long as the state of emergency exists, and I will contact council as to who has authority to allow boards and committees to adopt policies, like in this case, with respect to electronic signatures.
Okay, thank you very much.
Next under board to consider is an appointment to the scholarship committee. You'll recall that there's one vacancy that is currently existing, and it is, we've received the name of one particular individual who's expressed interest in serving on this committee, Christine Bento, who's a resident of Wilmington. And I would suggest the board consider appointing her to the scholarship committee.
Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made by Mr. Kyra, seconded by Mr. Eaton. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Mr. Kyra?
Yes.
Mr. Eaton?
Yes.
Mr. McCoy?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Mahony?
Yes.
And I am also a yes. The vote is unanimous. Thank you for volunteering to be part of the committee, to Mrs. Bento.
Next under board to consider is whether the board wishes to adopt a recommendation to the Board of Appeals with respect to the definition of local preference.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we recommend to the Board of Appeals the 4 items that Valerie Gingrich presented to us during her presentation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
The motion's been made by Mr. Kyra, seconded by Mrs. O'Mahony. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Mr. Kyra?
Yes.
Mr. Eaton?
Yes.
Mr. McCoy?
No.
Mrs. O'Mahony?
Yes.
And Mr. Bendel is also a yes. Motion passes 4-1.
Next under board to consider, these next 2 items are of similar circumstance. In the first case, a request of Denise Bresnahan, it's a disclosure in accordance with Chapter 268A, Section 20, relative to summer employment with the Wilmington Recreation Department. This has been done for the last few years. Ms. Bresnahan works for the summer rec programs. As you know, we have the Kids Place program and the playground program. Quite frankly, it remains to be seen whether those programs will actually take place. But at this point, we are taking the steps with the expectation that they may occur. And one of the measures that we need to, that I need to bring before the board is the request that the board authorize Ms. Bresnahan to serve in light of the fact that she does work for the school department.
Okay, is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there a second? Okay, the motion's been made by Mr. McCoy, seconded by Mr. Eaton. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Mr. Kyra?
Yes.
Mr. Eaton?
Yes.
Mr. McCoy?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Mahony?
Yes.
And Mr. Bendel is also a yes. The vote is unanimous. Thank you.
The final board to consider is an identical request, this one for Aaron Cowden, who also is involved in the summer rec program.
Okay, is there a motion?
Second. Make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, the motion's been made by Mr. Eaton, seconded by Mr. Kyra. Is there any discussion? Other than our thanks to Denise and Erin, we'll call for the vote. Mr. Kyra?
Yes.
Mr. Eaton?
Yes.
Mr. McCoy?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Mahony?
Yes.
Mr. Bendel is also a yes. Thank you. Okay, that concludes board to consider. We're going to move into public comment. And again, I know we have some callers on the line waiting to speak. But if you would like to call in, make a comment, the number is flashing at the bottom of your screen with the instructions of how to be called on. And our IT director will let us know how many calls we have. And John, if you could put on our first caller, and we'll ask that the callers please identify themselves by their name and address before making their comment, please. Caller number 1, are you there?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Could you give us your name and address, please?
Good evening. This is Kevin McDonald, 140 Andover Street in Wilmington. I just want to thank the board for the opportunity to ask a few questions. I'll try to keep my questions pertinent to the agenda tonight. And I just want to share some comments about what I think is the highest priority that the board has talked about tonight, and that's the COVID-19. A lot of times we see the news reports, but we see a lot of talking heads being interviewed, but the real people that are not being interviewed are the funeral directors and the people that are actually working in the nursing homes. And I'd like to speak a little bit about that. I have a friend that works at a nursing home, and I also have another friend that works at a funeral home. And the funeral home's in a small town. They've typically they might have a couple bodies a week. The last couple weekends was 18 bodies, and they got 6 more calls that day. And then the next weekend there were 20 bodies. And so the other friend that's working in a nursing home thinks that there are about 80% of the nursing home patients that have COVID-19. Half of the staff is out sick, and it's about a 50-to-1 ratio between sick folks and workers. And so I bring that up because we've been hearing about a second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic coming. And some are thinking that once the government gets open fully, that second wave that they're talking about in the fall, might be a third wave. And so having been through a lot of hazmat training, a lot of OSHA training, and safety orientation and mine safety and health training, one of the things that I've learned is that respirators have to be properly used to really protect yourselves. And you see a lot of people walking around with masks, and there's a lot of loose openings on them, and they're really not that effective. As a matter of fact, a lot of the folks that were responders at the World Trade Center site have gotten diseases, and there's probably more people that have died as first responders to the World Trade Center attacks than people that actually died in the attack. And so what I'd like to ask is, if the board, through its Board of Health agent and its public safety officials, can reach out to the state to not get the mask, the paper mask, but to see if we can get an abundant supply of respirators. And I was also told that people can contract the disease through their eyes. And so I'd also like to see if the board could do something about getting safety glasses or some type of eye protection. And just hoping, Mr. Chairman, that you might be able to speak on that if you're willing to help out with that type of response.
Sure, I'm happy to respond to your question. I can assure you that the town is in constant communication with our state delegation. I want to say that Senator Tarr, Representative Robinson, Representative Gordon have been very attentive to Wilmington's needs, and we appreciate them being in constant daily, almost daily, weekly communication with us. And I really appreciate Chief Kavanaugh and Shelley and all of our public safety officials who are keeping us informed with the latest CDC guidance and what the information that's coming out of the state. And we want to just continue to encourage folks to practice social distancing and to listen to the guidance from the CDC and from the state. And in terms of whether there'll be another wave or not, we'll have to, that remains to be seen. And I hope that everybody will adhere to the guidance that's being put out by our public safety officials. Chief, did I miss anything there?
The only thing I'd add is, Mr. McDonald, I understand what you're trying to get at, but as you know, if you've taken all those trainings, that we can't just give respirators to people. Respirators being given out need to be properly fitted. They need to be properly maintained. There needs to be logbooks. There needs to be a respirator actual program within the business in order to issue those to employees. So the N95 is exactly the way to go at this point in time. If you're in the wrong respirator, you're not actually doing anything to combat this virus. So the N95 is what is being put out by the CDC, and that's what really should be used at this time until those individual companies take it upon themselves to get some respirator training, fit tests, and a program in place.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, John, do we have any other callers on the line?
We do not.
Okay, we'll give it another couple minutes here. I know folks who may be looking for the number. It's on the screen here under Board of Selectmen. The number is in green. And also I see it flashing at the bottom of the screen there, white text over the blue. WCTV is kind enough to put the instructions at the bottom of the screen. So we eagerly await your comments. If it's okay with everybody, I'll just give it a couple more minutes here in case somebody's dialing in. Somebody's got to be out there.
You want me to do my Louis Armstrong impression? Wait.
Why not? While we're waiting, go ahead.
Yeah. Hello. I'm serious.
All right. Last call here. John, anybody on the line waiting to be heard?
Still no one.
Okay. If there's no objection, I'm going to move on. And we can move into announcements. We'll go down the line. Mr. Kyra, any announcements?
Not really, Mr. Bendel. Just I've been, driving around town and I see these balloons that say graduation on them, and I just want to. There's been a lot of college graduations happening, and I know the high school graduations, I guess, is coming, and it's going to be obviously a little different. And I just want to extend a congratulations to all those students who are graduating, both in college and high school. And also, what happened over the weekend is 2 times I saw the police and fire go by, and followed by multiple cars with banners and cheers and waves. And kudos to the police and the fire for participating with town residents and bringing a little happiness and joy to some of the people that are celebrating an anniversary, a birthday, a graduation. It was great. I saw them. I went bolting out of the house when I heard the sirens, and all of a sudden they go by, and there's tons of cars with signs of congratulations. So thank you to the police and fire for participating in that and bringing some happiness to the residents.
Absolutely. Mr. Eaton?
Just along similar lines, I wanted to thank you, Mr. Chair, for having the McLeod boys on for an appointment. I think these are certainly challenging times for everybody, but I think a lot of folks around town are really stepping up and showing our true colors. So I know it's not something that is within our jurisdiction. It's not like we had anything to consider on what they were presenting, but it's certainly good to see that a lot of folks in town, like the McLeod boys, are doing what they can to help out and pitch in and do what they can given the circumstances.
Absolutely. Thank you. It was a tough decision. There's so many good things going on, but I heard about those 2 guys. It made a pretty easy decision to have them on first. So thank you. Mr. McCoy.
Now, I'll just say, I'll echo what Selectman Kyle. I mean, unfortunately, what's happening with the world, but it's really kind of nice when you see the fire and the police, doing their little parade, whether it's someone's birthday party or whether it's a graduation that'd be coming up or whatever. It's just really nice to see it. And that way, eventually we can go back to normalcy. It's just really nice to see all the positive stuff. And I know people are staying home. And, it's just really nice. You look out, I look next to my neighbor, he's playing basketball with his kids and having a good time. And it's really nice to see that. It looks like a lot more family time. I'm sitting in the backyard with my family as well. I know we get the nice quality time, but I think we're all waiting to have that day of normalcy coming back. And I see that happen. It's just going to take a little time. That's all. And I echo what Mr. Kyra and everyone else is saying. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mrs. O'Mahony?
Sure. I just, looking at tonight's kind of agenda and what we talked about with the Memorial Day parade, being canceled, the 4th of July festivities being canceled, the, beach program for the summer being canceled, I think it's easy to get discouraged. And I think it's important for us to all remember we're doing this for a reason. I keep telling my kids that this is all part of history that we're in right now, and that people in the past had it a lot more difficult than us just to keep each other safe by staying at home. It's a sacrifice, but it's better than the alternative of making anyone sick or making this go on even longer. So I just wanted to let everyone know, we see what's being lost right now. We see what's being canceled, and we see kind of that there isn't an end in sight just yet. But, we hope that people realize we're doing this for their safety, and that these decisions are being made because of safety. And we hope everyone continues to just kind of follow the rules. And with that being said, I just also wanted to note that on May 18th, I became a mother of 4 children in double digits. And on May 22nd, I become a mother of 3 teenagers. So there will be some birthday parades going through my neighborhood in the next few weeks as well. So my neighbors are now warned. Actually, just one, the soon-to-be 13-year-old thinks he's too old for a birthday parade. But in these times, it is fun to come up with alternative ways to kind of celebrate when we can't all be together. And we just look forward to the makeups for all of that someday. And I want to thank you too for a second, Selectman Bendel. I did appreciate those kids being on at the beginning. I think we need more of that right now. So please keep doing that. Thank you for keeping us updated throughout all of this. And Mr. Hull, we like seeing the numbers. We like seeing the numbers go down. And hopefully that will be the case going forward. But we really appreciate all you guys. We know you're spending so much time outside of these meetings dealing with this and keeping the town safe and keeping us in the loop. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. And I'm just trying to stay on the McLeod boys' good side. They're going places, so.
They are.
Yeah, thank you. And great commentary by everybody. I would just add also, how cool was it to see some kids dressed up in their prom outfits this weekend? There was some kids actually got suited up in suits and dresses and were taking pictures as if they were getting ready to go to the prom. So that was kind of cool too. So I totally echo everything that's been said by you guys. And there's so many good things going on in the town. And I think we should really highlight some of them. So as we transition into new business, I want to welcome anybody who has a suggestion for the next meeting. As I said at the beginning, we probably can't take up every story that's going on in town, but we should definitely try to continue to showcase some of the good things that are going on, like the McLeod boys, and help share that. There's so many good things going on, like it's been mentioned. So that's my new business, that I welcome ideas from the public and from the committee to who will highlight next. And then we'll go to Mr. Kyra.
New business? No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Mr. Eaton.
None.
Mr. McCoy.
Yeah, just real quick, Jeff. I'm just wondering, what's the game plan? I know some of the roads aren't in the best of shape, and I understand what's happening in the world, but is there any game plan at all? Benebento's, I believe, is open. Are we doing anything to try to fill in some of these potholes? And because I know if you drive through town, there's issues, and I get it. But I was just wondering if we have any kind of game plan or what's going on.
Yes, certainly potholes. are being filled or will be filled as they're identified, and we do a very good job on identifying them, and when they're brought to our attention, we respond. There was an email that went out from the Public Works Director about some work that's being done on one of the roads in town here, and that will continue. One of the things that is going on internally is developing a plan for phased reentry, if you will, or reopening. As I mentioned earlier, each of the departments is active to varying levels. But I think once the governor provides further direction, which we anticipate to be sometime around the 18th of May, to the extent that we're able to reopen other elements of our services, we will be looking to do that, and department heads are putting together recommendations as to how that's going to happen.
Thank you, Jeff. I know Mike Woods and the crew, the DPW, do an outstanding job. That was the only issue that I had driving around town like the other select individuals. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Welcome.
Mrs. O'Mahony?
Nothing, thank you.
All right, the last thing I want to say there is that issue a challenge. AJ's Kitchen really stepped up and set the bar high. So whoever we highlight next week, I'm hoping somebody else will step up to that challenge. Some local restaurant will try to outdo that. So keep paying it forward. Thanks to AJ's Kitchen.
Mr. Bendel, I did want to note, and I don't want to, create another sponsor war or anything, but Wilmington House of Pizza has been delivering some meals to Deming Way residents for a little while now.
So many of our local businesses have been really up.
When we're giving shout outs, I'm sure there's plenty of them, and I'm sorry that we're not spotlighting on all of them, but I know when we've been kind of doing some outreach to Deming Way, they've never hesitated, and they still do it. We thought it was going to be a one-time thing, and they're still making the delivery. So
I think we could probably spend the next hour, bragging about all of our local businesses, how awesome they've really been, and how the residents have been supporting them too. And anybody see that line at the 99s yesterday? I came back from my mother-in-law's house, and my goodness, there was a line out to the street.
I was too busy cooking my own Mother's Day dinner. I didn't get to see any lines yesterday.
All right, Mr. Hull, important dates.
May 13th, brush drop-off Old Main Street, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. May 16th, brush drop-off Old Main Street, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. May 17th is the Farmers Market, Town Common Parking Lot, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. May 20th, brush drop-off Old Main Street, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Again on the 23rd, brush drop-off Old Main Street, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. May 25th, Memorial Day ceremony at Wildwood Cemetery, 11 a.m. Town offices are closed on that date. May 26th is the next Board of Selectmen's meeting, 7 p.m. May 27th is another brush drop-off, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. And again on the 30th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. June 1 is the revised deadline for property tax bills and exemptions and deferral applications. June 3rd, brush drop-off Old Main Street, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. June 4th, Shawshene Tech graduation. June 6th, brush drop-off Old Main Street, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. June 7th, Wilmington High School graduation. June 8th, Board of Selectmen's meeting, 7 p.m. June 14th, Farmers Market, Town Common Parking Lot, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. June 20th, annual town election, polls open 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then June 27th is the annual town meeting, high school auditorium, 10:30 a.m.
Okay, thank you very much. We don't meet till after Memorial Day. So happy Memorial Day to everybody at home and to my colleagues. And
You too.
thank you. And let's get through this. We're almost there. We can do this. Let's stick together and we can get this done. Okay, everybody, please be safe. With that, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
Stephanie, I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Eaton. Second. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Seconded by Mr. McCoy. Mr. Kyra?
Let me think about it. Yes.
Okay, Mr. Eaton?
Yes.
Mr. McCoy?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Mahony?
Yes.
And Mr. Bendel's a yes. Thanks, everybody, and good night.
Good night.